Hello and welcome to the FEZ show. It is the 7th of May and we are probably in the slowest news week in Formula E of the lockdown so far. So there is not much to talk about apart from probably the eSport event on Saturday, because thankfully in the UK tomorrow is a bank holiday. So we've decided to take the day off. So joining me to talk about nothing is Edward Hunter and Jack Pickering. Morning, boys.
Morning, Jack. Well, let's see if we can talk about something.
Yeah, Jack's just waving. He's not even, he's like,
Well, you said speak about nothing, so I'm speaking nothing.
so yeah, that's one way. That's one way to go about it. Obviously, not much has happened this week. Obviously, we've sort of broken the news about Scuderia E yesterday, Ed, and obviously them trying to enter the championship, speaking to three teams. But we've sort of made the majority of the news, and the rest of the news that's sort of come out, we've already discussed in length. So there hasn't really been much new happening this week.
No, I guess not. We had our magazine that came out. Features on Alexander Simpson and Oliver Rowland as well, which you can read on our website, formulezone.com/magazine. But yeah, it has been a little bit slower. We haven't had any kind of big comments from any drivers or personalities within the sport that have shocked anybody to their core. It's not been particularly controversial, of course. It's just waiting for this the third round of the race at home eSports Challenge from Monaco. But apparently it's going to be wet at some point.
We've got to give him a round of applause because that plug for the magazine.
Definitely, well done.
You've forgotten that we've done the magazine.
Oh, no. Yeah, the magazine is out, obviously. It features Alexander Sims. We go into depth with him. And Oliver Rowland, it obviously goes into the crazy thing. But what a plug. What a plug. Like, A star there. A star. A star. So, obviously, there wasn't a press conference because this is what we were banking on, actually. So we were banking on a press conference and obviously being able to speak to said drivers and get their opinions and find out about where we could be racing if Jamie Regal was on there or Alejandro Agag, anyone with any Formula E relevance that was on that press conference. We wanted to speak to, try and find out some information about what's going to happen about this event. And what its future looks like, because at this precise moment no one actually knows, because obviously, Jack, and I know you're not a big fan of this, we're going back to Monaco. So we did Monaco in the test race, but now you could argue, and I said to myself even before we could, before the championship started, we could go back to Monaco because it actually hasn't been a championship event. We just used it as a test race. Probably would have been really good to use the test track as the test race, because that sort of makes sense. It's a test track for a test race, but we use Monaco. But we're going back to Monaco. I know you're not a big fan of it, but there isn't much else where Formula E could race at this precise moment.
Not really, no. It's very annoying that we are going back to a race that we did 2 weeks ago. But yeah, as you said, it wasn't a championship race this time. It is, and so yeah, I do see I do see how that makes sense there. But yeah, I'm still not overly a fan of it. If they were going to go back to Monaco, I would have preferred it to be later in the season. So then we still would have had a variety of races before we go back to Monaco. The fact that it's wet, it just so artificial. I hate it. It's worse than the idea of sprinklers that Bernie had for Formula One about a decade ago. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of just going back to tracks. And if Nicky Shields says at about 5:15 on Saturday evening, next week we're going to Hong Kong but wet, I'm not going to be a happy boy at all.
That's the thing, right? We're going to find out very soon what Formula E intentions are for this race at home champion for the final couple of races, Ed, because that's what I'm thinking as well. Imagine, let's say, this Monaco wet race, and we'll talk about the weather side of it in a moment, but let's just say they do this wet race and they go, you know what? That was so good that we might as well continue it again, but this time at Hong Kong. And I'm like, no, don't do that, because we can't just go from, that was so great, maybe we should do Hong Kong and Leicester, and then that was their big plan, to just do the tracks again in the wet. Like, I think we're going to find out what their intentions are, because if they do that, I think that's just committing sim racing suicide. If they do say something in terms of we're going to be racing at this track, or we're going to be racing here, or if they say on Saturday, more news to come on where we're racing on Monday or something like that, then maybe that fuels what we've been fueling for weeks about this DLC.
I could see them though, even if the race at Monaco is like it's a horrible race when even in the wet nobody can overtake each other. and they'll say, "Wow, that was an amazing race. Let's do it again at Hong Kong in the wet." And just, I can see them doing that, to be honest, because they're kind of go. This doesn't feel like something they would be particularly flexible on. It's not like, the wet in Monaco didn't work. Oh, so we'll just go to Silverstone or Nürburgring, like you said in a previous podcast, that the episode rather, that it would just the track lap would be too long for Formula E, and it would end up having to reschedule the broadcast like we saw in Leicester with the sim racers their qualifying session got cut and in the whole melee of that. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. I'm not going to hold my breath, but you guys might are holding out for it, obviously. So we'll see who ends up being right, I guess. I kind of want to be wrong, though.
The thing is, that's what we were talking about. So that's the key issue about what Formula E's intentions are, Jack, in terms of, are we going to be racing on Formula E tracks because they're small? Or are we going to go and actually race on these bigger circuits? Now, as I said, we went through the R Factor 2 list. In terms of the big name tracks that they've got on there, you've got Silverstone, Zandvoort, Malaysia. There isn't that many to choose from, actually, that R Factor 2 have made. But obviously, those would be long. And obviously, with the format that we have of 15 laps, the elimination process, because they've set up that format, they can't adjust it. So if they wanted to go and race on Silverstone to fit everything in, they can't just say, oh, we're going to race at Silverstone, but we're going to reduce it to 10 laps because everyone's racing anyway, no one's going to get knocked out. Because they're doing this 15-lap elimination race, you have to do 15 laps. So therefore, 15 laps around Silverstone or Malaysia is going to be so long.
Oh yeah, Malaysia will take about 2 minutes 20 to get around. I think MotoGP only do 2 minutes around there. So, and I'd say Formula E are probably about the same speed as Moto2, Moto3. So it would be relatively long to go around those tracks. But maybe Zandvoort might make sense because it's not as long. I think it's only about a 1 minute 20 lap for F1 cars, so it'll only be about 1 minute 35 for Formula E cars. It still makes it quite long. But the thing is, as you said, you ran me through how many tracks R Factor have actually done just before we recorded. Admittedly, I've forgotten all of them, but yeah, you only listed about 9 before you said the rest of them are just like mods that people have made. So yeah, there isn't much really to choose from. So hopefully Formula E get their fingers out and actually start doing some stuff, and fingers crossed we'll be racing on somewhere that isn't Monaco, Hong Kong or Leicester in a week and a half.
Exactly. Like, for me, they're not going to race on somewhere else who's created a track. And the only reason I mention those tracks is because R Factor 2, Studio 397 Ed have made those tracks. So if they were going to go to somewhere official, then those would only be the types of tracks that they would go on. And there are some other tracks that R Factor 2 have made, but I've not heard of them. Jack didn't have never heard of them. They're obviously somewhere in the world, and R Factor 2 have decided to make them. But I can't see them going to something like the Bottomring, which I don't know what that is, and R Factor 2 have made it, but I don't think that's going to attract many fans going to a track that possibly no one's ever heard of.
Yeah, but we had the same issue with Leicester, and I guess the thing with the Leicester circuit was at least it was made specifically for the Formula E cars, even if it did end up being a bit of a crash fest. Formula E was at least able to get some mileage out of that first chicane and create a bit of drama, It's obvious that there aren't enough tracks for Formula E to use, but you sort of don't want them to see them admit that. And I think by going to some random track, that might sort of show that they're kind of almost admitting defeat. Like, okay, we got nothing. This is what's around. Let's use this. They just feel a bit clapped together, I guess.
No, that's what I mean. Like, that's why I think the DLC is important, and I think it's coming because we don't know when, obviously, Formula E decided to do this sim racing venture. They might have decided very quickly, to be fair. They might have realised, oh, look, Formula 1 are doing this, we need to do this. And then they would have gone, we don't really have any tracks to do anything on it. And therefore, they would have had to have phoned R Factor 2, probably, let's say they did that in March. And they would have phoned R Factor 2 and said, look, we need something, we need these tracks. Could you potentially make these tracks for us so we can then go racing, say, in 2-3 months' time? And, they could have said, yeah, fine, but, they're not going to be ready till May. And maybe Formula E Jack said, fine, that's fine, we'll start our event, mid-April, and then hopefully by the time we've got these tracks which we'll use, and then hopefully by the time we get to the pack will be ready.
Yeah, quite possibly. Yeah, I'm just hoping that is the case, and that we don't, and that we just don't go round in circles with these 3 tracks. Because the thing is, we've got 8 rounds. So once we've done these 3 races in the wet, we've still got 2 rounds left on the final weekend of the championship, and so yeah, we will need some tracks for then, definitely. But yeah, I've got everything crossed that we won't be going back to Hong Kong, we won't be going back to Leicester, and that we're going to see some new different tracks. And yeah, there might have been a delay in terms of getting this out, which is why they said we're going back to Monaco. But yeah, fingers crossed. Next week we're going to a brand new track.
I hope so. I really do, because we obviously need it, and it'd be great for Formula E fans. It gives them a reason potentially to buy R Factor 2. I think there's a lot of, bonuses for R Factor 2. Actually, like producing a DLC, because people will then buy R Factor 2, which is £25, then have to buy the Formula E pack, the original one, which contains Hong Kong and the Gen 2 cars, and then might have to buy Monaco as an additional purchase, plus this DLC. You're looking at 50 quid at least per customer for just a Formula E fan to get themselves started on R Factor 2. So I think, it could be a win-win for them, Ed.
Yeah, you got to think that the only thing is, are there really that many Formula E fans is the problem there. And that's probably one of the reasons why Formula E have struggled really. Like, a lot of people are saying, oh, why don't Formula E release their own Formula E game? And there's no real developer, there's no game making developer in Formula E. The best they've got is like the Virtual Live people who did the Ghost Racing app, whatever it's called. And the second thing is that I still think, even though Formula E is a lot more popular than it was when it started significantly, I don't think it's quite enough to sort of justify like F1 levels of you wouldn't get, say, as many people driving this mod, the RFX2 stuff, as you would in, say, F1 eSports Pro Series, where the attendance, and you've got all the different leagues, where you've got some, I think, is it AOR or Apex Racing or whatever, have like they have at least like 5 different sort of ladders. So like you have a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, all the way up to like tier 5 or 6, so which are like the entry level tiers and stuff. Yeah, so I think Formula E is a long way away from that at the moment, in my opinion.
For me, I honestly think that, there would be some people that would buy it. Obviously, like straight away, Jack said if something came out, he'd buy R Factor 2. He'd be one of those fans that would go out and do it. So I reckon there are fans out there. Yes, it's not on the level of Formula 1 and how many people would probably buy the F1 2019 or even the F1 2020 game when that comes out in June next month. So I think there would be people there, but it's an interesting argument, Jack, that what Ed makes in terms of, has Formula E actually, built up a significant fan base? Because, we're watching the Twitch streams and, the numbers aren't great. And obviously there's some of those Twitch streamers who are watching the drivers, some of the Formula E fans, who are watching the drivers. But when you look at, the Twitch stream, it had like 2,000 odd views. It's not, the numbers haven't been too great.
No, they haven't. And one thing that definitely isn't helping is that with the timing, we are also going up against the Formula One broadcasting classic races, and so yeah, that may get more attention. A, because it's Formula One, and B, they're showing the good races of Formula One, which are crazy. Like Brazil 2012, a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, that's always going to have an impact on what we're doing. But the thing is, they could change the time slot, because the thing is that Formula One did kind of get there first with that, because they started doing this they started doing the reruns a few weeks before that. But I'm not sure if they want to do it, but maybe time shift it by an hour. So then no, we can't, because there's the Race All-Star Trophy after that. Okay, I don't know what they want to do with that, but yeah, the whole timing, because we're in this situation, there's so many things that you can watch. It's not fantastic to have like so many things running alongside. I mean, I've watched, I've had the last few weeks the F1 race up on here, but focusing on my laptop, which has the Formula E sim race on. So yeah, I've been watching both.
I suppose, and it's great that the motorsport community in terms of Formula One and Formula E are doing all these events. So it keeps our Saturday occupied. We can actually stay indoors, not go outside and mix with friends and family and stay inside, and actually not catch COVID-19 and actually do something and have something to look forward to, which is great. But when things collide like they do, it's often not great. But in terms of like moving forward, I think obviously a DLC would be great, but what will happen, we still don't know. We're no brighter than we are because there was no press conference to actually ask the question. So we're just going to have to go into Saturday and pray our fingers crossed that something interesting is said on the coverage that makes us go, oh, that's where we're racing. Oh, I've got something to wait for on Tuesday. Fingers crossed a DLC, if that is what they do, for example. But let's move on to this weather thing, because obviously we're in the wet, and that's sort of like, okay, we're going to Monaco, but it's not dry, but it's in the wet, so it's slightly different than the test race, Ed. So, but personally, I don't think, the wet will make much difference. Like, I've driven on the wet on R Factor 2, it's pretty much the same. Like, and obviously on Formula E cars, it's all road tyres, so the grip's still pretty much there. It's just that, it's just a little bit slower.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it's not like the car suddenly starts aquaplaning off the minute a drop of water lands on the track. It's I think in the original R Factor game they didn't have rains. This is one of the big new things that they put in, that Studio 397 put into R Factor 2. So I've seen some wet driving in these particularly like older cars from like the 60s and 70s that they have in the game. They tend to slide out at the rear a lot more, whereas the Formula E car, like you say, it's got the all-weather tyres. It clears the water a little bit easier, so it's not going to be like, it's not like they're all going to go into turn one and slide off by default just because it's raining. So it could potentially maybe make just going to some of the braking zones a lot more interesting. Like there is the chicane that gets turned into the hairpin. So that could become slightly more viable overtaking spot. But you're still, because of the way the track is at Monaco, you're still going to see, I think, people barging into each other to get past because it's so narrow and there isn't really anywhere to properly overtake without cleanly, at least anyway.
Yeah, but the thing is, what surprised me, Jack, is that, I've taken part in the qualifiers, and the qualifiers, it's bone dry. So I'm like, it begs me a question is how they're going to make this rain. Is it going to start wet and it's going to be, wet the whole way through? Or is it going to start dry and maybe get wet towards the end? Like, they said, what Nicky Shields actually said didn't actually state that it was going to rain through the whole race. So we might just see rain towards the end to try and spice it up.
Yeah, that is a possibility. If it is, then I mean, I'm still not fussed by the fact that there's going to be rain. I mean, I don't get the point of, oh, it's going to be wet, but if you want to qualify for the race, it has to be dry. And I don't really understand why they've done that. But I'm not a big, as you've probably been able to tell over not just this show but Monday's show as well. The fact that they're doing it whilst wet is a stupid idea, and I don't like it. And so they should go some other tracks.
Yeah, the enthusiasm there from Mr. Pickering is just like off the chart. Like unbelievable enthusiasm for this weekend's race. Like he is so looking forward to it. Couldn't you tell? He is so looking forward to it. The thing is, right, I understand why Formula E have done it. I know it doesn't sound great, and they're trying to make it sound different to what the test race was. And it goes back, Ed, to, Formula E sort of abandoning the sim racing, which we've discussed about at length before, because, something like COVID-19 has made them go, right, we need to do something because every other championship is. And I still believe Formula E, I know we've got the sim racers, but we're talking about the influencers, and we haven't really had a major influencer in there. Obviously, we've got some great drivers like Alexander Lin, Simona Di Silvestro, who have turned up and have done great jobs actually in those as our sort of like influence and test races. But you've got the likes of now Lando Norris doing the Australian V8 supercars. He's done the IndyCar. We haven't gone big. We haven't really tried to get big influencer or try and get a big name who wouldn't normally drive a Formula E car to drive one. And to quote Lando Norris, because I've been watching a few of his Twitch streams because it's interesting to see how he does in these events. He says it's great to drive against these drivers simply because, and in these cars, because normally you don't get the chance to race against these drivers and put yourselves up against these drivers. So I honestly think if Formula E went asking that, people, would come knocking and say, yeah, all right, we'll come. You've got the race, you've got Jack Nicholls and Dario Franchitti in the race. Why not get Jan Magnussen driving in the sim race? Why not get Emmanuel Pirro driving in the... Why not get a big name to actually just come and drive? It's on the same platform.
Yeah, I can see your argument there. I think if I'm playing devil's advocate here, looking at it from Formula E's point of view, it could be that they don't want to attract the same kind of audience that Formula One has, and that's why they've gone for influencers like, I don't know, Jimmy Broadbent, Mike Chanel, who've sort of got audiences that view them on YouTube and view either their streaming or they've got like a chat show like we do, or they just do top 5 lists and stuff like that, sort of fairly easily digestible content. But we haven't really had any kind of, we've got a couple of, vaguely, it feels almost like they're kind of trying desperately to fill out the slots in the sim racers race. Like it was great to see Alex Lynn, Simona Di Silvestro, etc. But then you see some of the other, especially near the back, you do get the sense sometimes that Mike Chanel, guy does his best, but he's not really on the pace with everyone else. And you got to think something. I mean, just bring an audience in. It's not like massive audience like say someone like Lando Norris might have, particularly. And yeah, I personally think I agree with you, Jack, that they should switch tact and try and get your Max Verstappen's, your Lando Norris's, your George Russells, etc. Interested in at least taking part in a Formula E race. It would at least sort of bump up the viewing figures a fair bit. But at the same time, I can see it from their point of view. They don't want to just associate themselves and invite that comparison with Formula One, I guess.
Is that something, Jack? So I just think that moves us on nicely to our next topic about, has Formula E with this sim racing thing only really attracted the core Formula E fans? With their set having all 24 drivers. And in the sim race, the sim race is just there, really. The main event is the 24 drivers. So you could have the sim race in a sense, or was it wrong for them to attract the 24 drivers so you can allow, because at the moment you can't allow legend old drivers, current F1 drivers to actually race alongside Formula E drivers because the grid is full, which is great, and I love that the grid is full. But at the same time, the grid is pretty much full in IndyCar. The grid is pretty much full in the V8 supercars. Like, they've all got all their championship drivers in there, and so do we. But there's no harm in actually upping the car numbers to 26 or 25 and having a special guest come in and actually race in a Formula E event in the actual drivers' race.
Yeah, no, it's basically what I was about to say. Why not have 2 spare cars? Why not have 2 cars? This is 24 hours after I said don't allow any more teams into Formula E. But yeah, for this, I will allow a 13th team in Formula E and make it just have 2 special guest seats race. We've seen in the F1 virtual race, we've seen Thibaut Courtois, we've seen Ben Stokes, we've seen Ian Poulter, and about 20 minutes before we started this recording, it was announced that Man City player Sergio Aguero has now been confirmed for Red Bull Racing this weekend. That's pretty damn cool. Just like seeing like all these like top flight footballers coming in and just people not from Formula One just have a go at doing this. And yeah, I think it's a great idea. We've seen, and I'm not suggesting this happens, but Rita Ora was on the show a couple of weeks ago. But doing some stuff for UNICEF. So maybe get some UNICEF ambassadors to do do a race or something for the fun of it, and it's raising money for the charity that they are ambassadors for.
Exactly.
I kind of
Massa's
trailed off at the end there, but yeah.
Felipe Massa's
Exactly.
a UNICEF ambassador, actually.
He's also a driver.
Yeah, I know,
so
but-
We don't need to drag him in. He's already here.
No, but it's amazing when you think about the Formula One event, and you've got all those names, and now you've got Sergio Aguero, Thibaut Courtois, two footballers and two people that you'd probably never imagine were even Formula One fans. You don't know because we haven't had this opportunity to find that out about them, and there might be some professional sport athletes out there who are fans of Formula E, who think, I'm a fan of racing and I really like Formula E. Nico Rosberg, now I know Nico Rosberg is a massive advocate for the championship. Obviously, it'd be cool just having him on the grid. And obviously Sky F1, when they were doing all this, they sent Jenson Button a sim rig, and they were sending Nico Rosberg a sim rig. So we know there's a sim rig coming to him, and obviously Spain's restrictions have been, lifted slightly. So I don't know if he's received that, but I'm pretty sure if Formula E got on the phone to Nico Rosberg, they just did an interview with Nico Rosberg, Jamie Regal, and Alejandro Agag recently on Nico Rosberg's YouTube channel. So even getting him in to just race one of the races, a Formula One world champion, that'd still bring numbers across. It'd still bring people over. And, attracting that audience, and that would then attract the Formula One audience, which I know, Ed, you said, they shouldn't really go for, but I think they have to. They have to go for it. Because if they don't go for it, then what fans are they attracting? They're just waiting for new fans to appear. But where are these new fans going to appear from? You need to go into the community that is still attracting new fans today in Formula One, and actually bring them over and say, look, Formula One's great, brilliant, love it, but there's also this, and I'm sure you'll love this as well, and you've got to bring them over somehow.
Yeah, I agree with you. I know what I said earlier was more sort of trying to get into Formula E's shoes and sort of, right, what's their point of view and why they've done the approach that they have. And I agree that it's flawed that you go for this eSports audience, and they've been doing it for years as well. Like at the actual Formula E races, they would invite, I don't know, Aria or whoever, just to come over and drive the car at Buenos Aires, and then he would do a video on it, and then that would be it. They would sort of like, oh, I got to drive a Formula E car, that was cool. Anyway, back to 50 billion Call of Duty videos or whatever. And it just sort of shows that maybe this gaming, they always sort of assumed that this gaming audience would flock to Formula E, and that's not really happened. So maybe they should change tack and go for Formula One as well. But of course, the problem there is, again, that you've got these two similar things. And Formula E, they consciously wanted to avoid that comparison with Formula One, because if you did, then people just go, oh, these cars are so much slower than Formula One, they haven't got the same grip as Formula One, blah, 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 which is kind of not really the point. But yeah, I don't know.
But at the same time, WEC, for example, great series, doesn't have the same grip as a Formula One car, doesn't have the same, well, you could say it does have the same speeds, but if you think GT Pro, they don't. And GT Pro is probably the best series in WEC, in my opinion. But I would say I'm a racing fan, and I'm a Formula One fan. I was a Formula One fan before I was any other racing type of fan. But just because it's a great racing series, I started watching it. Formula E is exactly the same. Formula One fan, then became, enjoyed WEC. Now I'm a Formula E fan because it's great racing. And, I think, if you go after the community that's already there, you will win people over. If you don't go into those influencers and start talking to them, Jack, you're never ever gonna break in.
No, and I completely agree. I mean, like, I grew up watching Formula One, and I never really ventured out for anything else until I was maybe about 11 or 12 when I properly got into motorsport, because I had other obsessions before that. But still, yeah, I think they do need to, they need to pinch some Formula One fans, and the thing is, one thing that I do know is quite a lot of Formula One UK Formula One fans had actually booked to go to the London E-Prix. So the fact that that's off hasn't helped. But I think once people have been to a race, they're now involved in this bubble, and this bubble just keeps on getting bigger and bigger. So annoyingly, we can't really do that because of the scenario. But I think with with something like this. They did, as I said, the fact that Formula One and Formula E are clashing at the same time on Saturday afternoons, that's not helping either. So you're trying to attract the fan base, but you're also trying to take them away from what they're currently doing.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? With Formula E, they just need to attract fans. They need to do something that would actually, bring people across. We're not telling people don't watch Formula One, watch Formula E instead. We're the future. We're the ones that are going to be relevant. There is a world where we can all, coexist, Ed.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not one or the other. They're different series, and they provide obviously, different things. Obviously, if you want to see some of the fastest cars in the world, you watch Formula One. If you want to see some of the most cars that are pushing limits of energy efficiency, electric vehicle battery technology, you watch Formula E. Also, lots of great street circuits in places that you wouldn't see racing normally take place at. And obviously, that's not such an attraction for our factor. We can just race anywhere anyway. But yeah. So I agree with you there on those points.
For me, just to wrap this bit up, to me it shows how important racing in cities would have a core motorsport values and really like motorsport, like obviously the United Kingdom, Germany, Brazil, places like that where there is already a core fan base just for racing. There's a historical aspect of it, and racing in those countries is so important to Formula E because then at least you're attracting like the Formula One fans who would then go and buy a ticket to a Formula E race because it's 10 times cheaper. And you get the whole day. You don't miss practice, qualifying, race. You get it all in one day. It's all over, and then they become Formula E fans. They become fans of the sport as well, and then you get more eyeballs, more people looking for Formula E news, than just looking out for Formula One news that they do every 5 minutes, which I know so many people do. And if you check Google Trends, you'll see that. If we put Formula One and Formula E, it's night and day the difference. It's like Formula E doesn't even exist compared to Formula One.
Can I make just one comment? I never thought I'd see the day where the Jellies race Marble Run, the Marbula E videos getting more views than the sim racing.
Yeah, but that's unique, isn't it? It's just a unique thing, but still, that is a fantastic way of sort of getting people into Formula E. Yes, it's a marble race. It doesn't look like it has anything to do with Formula E, but it's still about Formula E, so then people might be intrigued to actually then go on and look up the series and see what it's about, especially for kids. I think it's a great way to get kids involved, and I think, what Virgin have done has been an amazing achievement. Now, boys, we're fastly running out of time on an episode that we thought we had nothing to talk about, so I think we've done pretty well. So let's just get some race predictions in. It's between three people, in my opinion. Is Van Dorn finally not going to crash on the first lap and win? Or are we going to see Maximilian Günther do it again? Or is Pascal Wehrlein Jack, is he just going to trump them all?
Well, I was correct last week with Max Günther because I was boring and just went for the same winner who had won the last two. I am going to shake it up this week. I am going to say Pascal Wehrlein. I just think he might do quite well. Oh, there he is. As if on cue. No. I think now he's very swiftly caught up to the pace of all the other all the other drivers. So yeah, I'm gonna stick my neck on the line and say Pascal Wehrlein this weekend.
Yet more evidence that Jack Pickering controls the universe. Okay, so. I will predict. I'm going to go a bit outside the box here and go for Robin Freins for the Formula E drivers race because he came second last time out. He's pretty good in the rain, so if it does rain as advertised, then I think that's going to suit Robin. And for the sim racers race, I think Peter Briljak is going to win for Neo.
Okay, for me, I'm going to say Stoffel Van Dorn. I'm going to go for Van Dorn. I believe in you. I believe in that Belgian. Okay, the waffle, as he's called.
And
turn one. my probably. My prediction to vote for a podium, an outside bet who won't be from those top three, is going to be Mr. Oliver Rowland, who is also very quick in the practice sessions, always in the top 5, but obviously seems to struggle in the qualifying and then gets lower down the order. A bit of a Monaco master. Let's see if maybe that can come out on Saturday. So boys, thank you so much for joining me. We managed to fill the episode.
Yeah, ciao, ciao, Jack.
Our longest episode.
It probably is our longest episode, on an episode where we thought we'd have absolutely nothing to talk about. We actually got into a really good argument, actually, I think, about Formula E and how there's probably still so much work that they can do in order to attract fans. But anyway, boys, thank you so much for coming on. You have been watching the FEZ show. We have a new Discord group, which you can put in the description below, so go check it out. Got a great community there. Want to build up the community. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.